Hello and welcome to Open Line. I'm Starlene Stringer. Well, the winter storm in February focused a lot of attention on critical resources like electricity and water. Today, we'll learn how Irving water utilities tackled some of the challenges created by the storm. And we'll also learn how a foundation laid over 50 years ago prepared them to face those challenges and serve the residents and businesses of Irving. Joining me are Todd Reck, Director, Steve Pettit, Assistant Director, Donna Starling, Water Programs Manager, and David Johnson, Raw Water Pumping Supervisor with Irving Water Utilities. Thank you all so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's our pleasure. Y'all, the winter storm was much more severe than anyone could have anticipated, which created problems throughout the state. Well, Todd, I want to start with you by asking, what were some of the challenges created by the storm here in Irving?
Yeah, it was a crazy, stressful week for all of us. And I would say at the top of the list was the loss of power. We had all of our customers, a lot of rolling blackouts going on, and it impacted us from the pumping. We have pump stations throughout the city that require power. Thankfully, we have backup generators that we were able to turn on. They performed really well. We went through a lot of fuel throughout the process, about 2,000 gallons to keep the pump stations up and running. People scrambling, working 24 hours a day to make sure that happened. But that was a big impact. We had no power at our offices here, so staff was dealing with that as well. And of course, the extreme temperatures created lots of issues for us. Some of the instrumentation in the field that we rely on that tell us what the pressures of our system are, the water pressure, tank levels, that stuff froze up. So we were scrambling, sending staff out to try to get that warmed up and try to get readings so that our operators knew how much water was in the tanks and knew how much to pump out into the system. So those were a couple of things. Another one was just we were inundated with phone calls. We had lots of people that were dealing with a lot of the same challenges, pipe breaks in their houses, and needed us to come out and help them with that, to turn the water off. And so we typically get about 260 calls a week for operations for service, and we had over 1,300 that week, and about over 400 in one day alone.
Oh my goodness.
So trying to respond to customers and trying to make sure we had enough people here on staff and in the building to help with that. Trying to make sure we had enough people to answer the phones. And then just the challenge of people trying to get to work. We had also a couple of people that were going out and picking people up with four-wheel drive vehicles just to make sure we had enough people here in the office to help out with basic things like answering the phones.
Wow, that's pretty cool. You have a lot going on for sure behind the scenes.
Definitely.
I was going to ask you, so how did you mobilize? You mentioned that you had some of these four-wheel vehicles people were driving to go get people and bring them into work. How else did you mobilize your team to meet the challenges?
Well, fortunately, we're used to working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we have crews that are in place to work those kind of hours. The challenge is we had to bring a lot more people in to do that. So it's a matter of trying to get people to come in. You know, we have people that live outside of the city that had to drive in. Thankfully, they all responded. We've got a crew here that are very dedicated to what they do, very customer focused, and people really went above and beyond to get to the office. And once they were here, some of them couldn't go home. We had cots set up. We had people sleeping here, working 24 hours a day, using our shower facilities. Really just, it was a period of all hands on deck. And, you know, I'd say our team responded in a great way. Everybody stepped up, and wherever there was a need, you know, it was a unique situation. Things kept popping up that we don't typically see, but everybody jumped in, worked outside of what they typically do to keep things up and running.
Sounds like you really do have a great team. I want to turn to Steve for a second. Steve, can you update us on the transfer line repair? I mean, it actually might be a good idea to explain how a transfer line actually operates.
Yes, first, a transfer line is exactly what it sounds like. We receive most of our water from the city of Dallas at our Hackberry pump station that's located up at MacArthur and 635. And from that pump station, we transfer water from one pump station to two others. So its only function is to move water between those three pump stations. And we noticed that we had a leak on it towards the very end of the week where the storm hit, and we mobilized a contractor out there, and they were able to help us make the repair and get the line back into service last week. So just another challenge and a challenging week.
Y'all definitely stepped up to the challenge. So Steve, what was the impact on water customers themselves?
The impact on, specifically with loss of the transfer line, there was no real impact to the customers with that. We were able to work with our partners over at the City of Dallas and change where we were receiving water so that it would not impact our customers.
Wonderful. Now, I know some communities had a boil water advisory, but Irving did not. Todd, how did this impact water supply?
Well, I think the big challenge that we had was just trying to make sure we had the water in the parts of our system where we needed it. We don't typically see the demand that we had on the system this time of year. It was more of a summer type demand. This type of year, we pump about 27 million gallons a day into the system to our customers. Just overnight, it went from 27 to over 50 million gallons that we were trying to get out.
Wow. To That's a whole lot.
We had pipes that were broken. Our customers had pipes that were broken. People were running water faucets in their house. So it put a big strain on our system. And we were, as Steve mentioned, we were working with the City of Dallas. They treat our water, trying to make sure we were bringing in enough water for our customers, and then trying to make sure we could move it to where it was really needed, so that we didn't lose pressure on the system, which is what happened in a lot of cities. And then, just the diligent efforts trying to keep generators up and running and keep pump stations running. That's where our crews, I think, really excelled. Didn't have any failures of any of that equipment and kept it up and running throughout the duration.
Well, all of this truly really underscores just how critical it is to maintain an ample water supply, which city leaders foresaw years ago. So let's talk a bit about that history. Todd, looking back almost 50 years ago, the City Council wanted to create an independent water supply. How did they come to that decision?
Yeah, back in the 1950s was a period of high growth in Irving. We've seen a lot of people move to the area. It also coincided at the same time we had one of our worst droughts in our history. It went on for 3 or 4 years during that period. So we had communities that were really concerned, including Irving and Dallas, about running out of water. So it was really a wake-up call to everybody in the region that we need to start looking at additional water supplies for the future to make sure we can handle the growth and the people moving to the area. So that's what spurred some of the initial discussions. Irving certainly got into that discussion as well. Dallas did as well. But it led to hiring of a consultant, Freeze and Nichols, who we still work with today, and began working with them to try to figure out, where we could build a new lake, where we could acquire those water supplies. And so that's really what kicked it.
Interesting. People aren't always receptive to change. They're not always excited about it. So was there any resistance to that idea?
Anytime you have a big public works project like a lake, certainly falls in that category. There's going to be some resistance. Part of it's just the cost of it, because you're planning for the future. You're planning 30, 40 years down the road. So there is a substantial cost associated with that. The other things are just the effort that it takes to do it, all the work that you have to put in, permits that you have to acquire, studies that you have to do, stakeholders that you get involved in. So there's just a tremendous amount of work that it takes to do that, and there's always going to be some pushback.
I can imagine. Okay, so Steve, it was a long road to get here, but the city ultimately obtained rights at Lake Chapman. So how is that arrangement different to other water districts in our area?
Well, a lot of the cities that around the Metroplex that are similarly sized to Irving contract with a regional utility like the North Texas Municipal Water District that serves Collin County, or the Upper Trinity Regional Water District that serves Denton County, and even the City of Dallas serves a number of customers. But we're one of the few cities that has our own raw water supply, and that has allowed us to do some things that other cities that don't have that option to do.
Interesting. Okay, so let's talk about how it all came about. Todd, what were the details of executing the plan in terms of the approval process to build the lake?
There's two primary permits that you have to acquire before you can build a lake, and both of them require a lot of effort. One of them is through the state, our regulatory agency, the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. They actually, you apply to get the rights to use the water. And so there's hydraulic studies, environmental studies, archaeological studies, economic studies. There's all this work that goes into just applying for the permit, and then there's a lot of follow-up hearings and discussions that go along with that. And then the other side of that is the federal government, and that's the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. With the lake, you're typically damming up an existing river. There's a lot of impact to that river ecosystem, so a lot of studies and information that you have to acquire also to make sure that you're mitigating any issues that you're creating and taking care of.
Wow, it sounds like it could be a long process. How long does it actually take to build a lake?
Well, Irving started the process back in the mid-1960s, and the dam was completed in 1991. So in that case, it was about a 30-year effort to do the studies. There were some lawsuits and some environmental concerns that came up that Irving had to work through that were a big challenge. It was a big stumbling block and put a hold on the whole project for quite a while. But anytime you build a lake, it's such a big project and has such a big impact on the people that live in the area where you're building the lake, and then the people that you're trying to serve. It's just, it's you pull a lot of stakeholders together, and there's just a lot of work that has to be done.
Sounds like it. So how does the water, Todd, actually get to Irving from Lake Chapman?
We have it's about an 80-mile delivery system. Believe it or not, our water comes from Lake Cooper, which is also known as Jim Chapman Lake, officially renamed. But it's out north of Sulphur Springs, Texas. So we have a 40-mile pipeline that we share with the North Texas Municipal Water District. And there's a pump station intake structure at the lake. And we pump water through that system. North Texas, they discharge their water into Lake Lavon. Ours then picks up into another system, goes on in another pipe. And the first part of the pipe, the 40 miles, is a 7-foot diameter pipe. The next segment of the line is a 6-foot diameter pipe. So, it's a big system. We're basically transferring water from Lake Cooper or Jim Chapman Lake to Lake Louisville. And from there, we release it out of the dam every day, coordinate with the Corps of Engineers. It comes down the Elm Fork of the Trinity River, where it's then treated and eventually makes its way into Irving. So it's quite a long path and literally takes multiple days to get to its end destination.
Well, it's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Steve, we have an arrangement, I understand, with the City of Dallas for water treatment. Can you describe that a bit?
Yes, we've got two existing contracts with the City of Dallas. One is a treatment agreement that we have with the City of Dallas for our Lake Chapman water, which is about 85% of our supply. And we supplement that with a wholesale agreement with Dallas for the last 15%. So we do have two agreements with Dallas to take advantage of our raw water and then just some additional wholesale water.
Okay. And Todd, I want to come back to you for a second. Are there other municipalities in partnership with us?
I mentioned the North Texas Municipal Water District, and they serve Collin County and a lot of counties to the north of us. We share the first 40 miles of the system with them. The rest of the system we own outright, but we do transport water for the Upper Trinity Regional Water District as well. That's a big water district that serves a lot of different cities, 15 to 20 cities around Denton County. So it's a big partnership, and a lot of times with these regional water projects are just so big that when you build them, you pull partners in and work together. So we have a partner on part of the pipeline, and we also have a customer that we deliver water for.
Makes sense. I understand. Thank you. Okay, now I would love for us to take a look at Lake Chapman facilities, and David Johnson is going to walk us through the process. First, David, could you explain what a balancing reservoir is and why we have one?
A balancing reservoir is a 12 million gallon ground storage facility. It's used for flow balancing, and also it's used for surge protection, as a surge protection point in the overall system.
Okay, and what role does a pump station actually play in the process?
The pump station, it lifts water to higher elevations along the pipeline to complete the transfer of water to Lake Louisville.
All right, and about how much water are you talking? How much water would you say is pumped daily?
Approximately 65 million gallons per day.
Ooh, that's a lot. All right, let's talk about your staff. How many people work at the Princeton location and what are their roles?
I've got 7 employees out here. I've got 5 operators. I've got a technical coordinator and myself.
Okay, well, Steve, Todd talked a bit earlier about how water gets to Irving. Can you describe how it gets to residents and businesses and what infrastructure is involved?
Sure. Once we receive our water from the city of Dallas, they send it to us through 3 transmission pipelines from their treatment plants, and from there we distribute it to the city through 4 pump stations that we have. And in addition to those 4 pump stations, we have over 700 miles of pipe ranging in diameter from 6-inch to 54-inch, and we also have 9 water towers throughout the city to help us maintain pressure. And all of this is done with someone watching the system 24 hours a day, making sure we maintain pressure. We have someone sitting at a computer terminal looking at tank levels and looking at pressures throughout the system and turning pumps on and off as they need to, so that our customers and our businesses have water.
Wow, the forethought city leaders actually put into securing water for the city is very impressive. Todd, what do you see as the future direction of Irving's water supply efforts?
Well, water supplies, as I mentioned, take a long time to develop. So we have a 50-year water supply plan that we keep updated. Several things that we look at. Of course, you're looking at population growth, and that continues to change to make sure that we stay ahead of that and that we have enough water for all of our customers. But when it comes down to how we make up that need, certainly water conservation is at the top of the list. We can be smart about how we use our water and conserve water. That's less water that we have to develop, less money we have to spend in the future for a new lake or a new source. So that's a big part of our focus for our water supply plan. Water reuse is another piece of that, and that's taking water that's already been used. We're able to take it and clean it to different levels, and one of the ways that we do that and reuse it is at the golf course, Irving Golf Course. We pull the water out of the river downstream from the treatment plant and then put that into the irrigation system. They're able to use that to irrigate the entire golf course.
Okay.
So we're also looking at reuse for water supply to boost up our future water supply, and so we have some projects right now doing some additional sampling and testing and trying to figure out how we can move the water to different parts of our system so that it could be treated eventually to drinking water standards, stored maybe in a lake, transported down the river where it gets some natural treatment and mixing and so forth, and then pulling it out again to treat it to drinking water standards. So there's a lot of work going on right now with reuse.
A lot of important research for sure. Now, as you mentioned, a big part of securing and maintaining an ample water supply is conservation. And Donna Starling joins us now to talk about the city's water conservation plan. Donna, can you describe the elements of the city's plan?
So we have a water conservation plan that's a part of a general water management plan. So there's a conservation side and a drought contingency side. The water conservation side is the proactive side, where we are continuously on a day-to-day basis involved in various elements that you mentioned to help people understand how to better conserve water. And so just as an example of that, we have a big focus on irrigation, because irrigation is a very large use of domestic water. And so we have a program where we have a licensed irrigator that will go out and provide assistance to our residents in reviewing their irrigation system and helping them find problems that need to be fixed or issues that just need to be maintained, and how to set their controller, which is a big issue among folks with irrigation systems. And so he's out on a pretty regular basis, and you can sign up for a visit from our licensed irrigator online. That's an important program. We also have something that's about to hit that everybody needs to be aware of, which is our time of day restrictions. And that element of our water conservation plans indicates that from April the 1st through the 31st of October, so basically April Fools to Halloween, you shouldn't be irrigating in the middle of the day. So from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., it is against our city ordinance to irrigate, because that's the least effective time of day for that irrigation water. And a lot of it is evaporated and possibly blown away. In our hot summer temperatures, that's just not an effective time. So we will implement those on April the 1st. And then there's a number of different things. We also have weather stations. We have a south weather station and a north weather station in Irving. And those provide us with information on how much precipitation we've received. And then folks can sign up for information from watermyyard.org, and it'll give them a weekly notice of how much additional irrigation needs to be put into their landscaping to supplement whatever we've received naturally.
Those are great things.
That's a good program.
For sure. And how else can viewers do their part and actually learn more about water conservation?
So the entire water management plan, including all of the 20 elements of the water conservation plan, are on our website. So you can actually look it up and read about what we try to do. There's a lot of information in there. In addition, one of the things that we're focusing on a continual basis is what we call GPCD goals. And that's gallons per capita per day used by Irving residents. And so one of the things I think that's good to know is that over the last I'd say 10 years, we have reduced our GPCD from in the 100 gallons per day range to down in the high 80 gallons per day. Wow. People probably don't realize how much water they use. So it's really nice when you can focus on what you're using, how you're using it, and get some information from our water conservation plan to manage that better.
And you guys have some really great programs people should take advantage of too. Like, what do viewers need to know about programs like the Irrigation Assistance Program and the Leak Detection Program?
So the Irrigation Assistance Program is really the newest element in our water conservation plan. And so we have been trying to advertise that a lot, and you can go online and get information, and it'll go directly to our licensed irrigator, and then he can give you a call. Our Leak Detection Program is something that we do primarily internally, although we do ask our residents to repair leaks when we find that they have a private leak, and that's something that we do on a regular basis. We have our own city leak detection program, leak detection, where we have staff going out and using specialized listening equipment to listen to our underground infrastructure. So they're able to put their ears on our pipes and hear where water is escaping. And when they detect that that is happening, then they're able to use additional equipment to pinpoint where that's happening, and then to bring our crews out to make repairs. And so that's a really unique program. We do work through just manual surveys where our guys walk down the street and listen to all the services. We also have specialized logger equipment, and they run patrols to listen to the loggers and see if they're indicating there's a leak in any part of town. And then we also have become involved with a satellite leak detection program where we use satellite imaging to indicate where water may be escaping our system. And that directs our staff where to go and to find leaks. And that has also been very successful.
Wow, okay. Well, we're just about out of time, but last and not least, I'd like to ask you, Donna, what can people do on a daily basis to just help save water?
I think probably the best thing folks can do is just to be mindful of how they use water. And it may change from situation to situation. We were talking about the winter storm, and during the winter storm, we were actually asking people not to do any extra laundry or run any extra loads of dishes in your dishwasher because there was water being used to drip faucets and that sort of thing. On a day-to-day basis, just make sure if you're doing a load of laundry that it's full. If you're doing a load of dishes, that it's full. Okay. And that when you're brushing your teeth, you're not letting the water run. You turn it off, brush your teeth, and then turn it back on to rinse. So there's some simple things that, believe it or not, can save many gallons of water.
Thank you for those reminders. Thank you, Donna, and thank you to all our special guests for a very informative and timely program.
Thank you for having us.
For more information, visit the website listed here or call 972-721-2281. That's 972-721-2281. Thank you for watching. I'm Starlene Stringer. Please be sure to join us for the next edition of Open Line. We'll see you then.